My name is Hania, and I'm 21 years old. I never thought I would share this part of my life with anyone, but sometimes silence becomes heavier than pain itself. This is the story of how I learned that not every family member deserves your trust, and how darkness can hide behind the warmest smiles. After my father passed away, everything changed. Our home, once filled with laughter, turned silent. My mother couldn't handle the expenses alone, and soon we had to leave our house. That's when my uncle, my father's elder brother, offered to take care of me. He said, "Hania is like my daughter. She'll stay with us until she completes her studies." At that time, his words felt like a blessing. I thought I was lucky to have such a caring uncle. My mother believed him too. She kissed me goodbye and said, "You'll be safe there, my dear." They're family, but I didn't know then that sometimes the people we trust the most can break us the deepest. When I first arrived at my uncle's house, everything looked perfect. It was a big house, clean floors, expensive furniture, and quiet hallways. My aunt welcomed me with a smile, though it didn't feel real. My cousins seemed polite, but distant. At first, I tried to adjust. I helped my aunt in the kitchen, studied in my room, and tried not to disturb anyone. But soon, I began to notice things, small things that made my heart uneasy. My uncle was different when others weren't around. His tone changed. His eyes stayed on me too long when I spoke. Sometimes he would enter my room without knocking, pretending to check if I needed anything. It was always at odd hours, late at night, early in the morning. I didn't know how to explain it to anyone. I was scared, confused, and ashamed. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The house itself began to feel heavy. The walls were quiet, but it was not peace. It was silence filled with fear. At night, I could hear whispers from the other rooms. My aunt often cried, and my cousins avoided looking into my eyes. Everyone seemed to live in fear of my uncle. He controlled everything. What they ate, where they went, even what they said. I remember one evening at dinner, my cousin accidentally dropped a glass. My uncle slammed his hand on the table so hard that everyone froze. His face turned red with anger, and his voice echoed through the room. I sat there, terrified. That was the moment I realized. This house was not a home, it was a cage. Weeks turned into months. My uncle's behavior became worse. He was always watching me. He would ask questions about my friends, my college, my clothes, questions that felt too personal. When I didn't answer, he would get angry. My aunt never spoke a word. She looked broken, like someone who had given up years ago. Once, she whispered to me when no one was around, "Hania, never be alone in a room with him. Just don't." Her voice was shaking. That was enough for me to understand. She knew. She had lived it too. From that night, I started locking my door. I began sleeping with my phone in my hand, ready to call someone if needed. I wanted to tell my mother, but I didn't want to break her heart. She trusted my uncle completely. Every morning, I put on a brave face and went to college. People there saw me smiling. No one knew that every night I prayed just to survive. One day, something changed. My uncle came home angry after a phone call. He shouted at my aunt and then looked at me with rage in his eyes. "You think you can live here for free?" he yelled. "This is my house. You follow my rules." That night, I sat on my bed. shaking. Tears ran down my face as I whispered to myself, I can't stay here anymore. I started planning, quietly, secretly. I called my mother and told her that college was giving me a hostel option. She didn't know the truth, that I was trying to escape. Before I left, my aunt came to me quietly in the kitchen. Her hands were trembling. She said, "You're doing the right thing, Hania. Leave this house before it destroys you too." I looked into her eyes. They were filled with pain and years of silent suffering. I hugged her tightly, knowing she could never escape the way I could. That night, I packed my bag, waited until everyone was asleep, and left the house quietly. My heart was beating so fast that I could barely breathe. Every step away from that door felt like I was reclaiming a part of my life. When I finally reached the bus stop, I looked back at the house one last time. A big, beautiful house that held so much ugliness inside. I whispered to myself, no one will believe me, but I know the truth. And then I walked away, into the darkness, into freedom. When I left that house, I thought I was free. But freedom doesn't come all at once. Sometimes it comes in pieces. For days, I couldn't sleep properly. Every sound made me jump. Every man's voice made me uncomfortable. I had escaped my uncle's house, but I couldn't escape the memories. They followed me like shadows that refused to disappear. I moved into a small hostel near my college. My mother still believed that I was staying there because of my studies. I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. I didn't want to break her completely. At first, I avoided people. I stopped trusting anyone. I used to sit alone by the window staring outside, wondering why life had to be so cruel. There were nights when I cried silently, asking God, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" But one day, something changed. At college, one of my professors, Miss Nadia, noticed my silence. She called me after class and said gently, "Hania, you look tired lately. Is everything okay?" That was the first time I spoke about what happened. I didn't share all the details, but I told her that someone in my family had made my life a living nightmare. She listened quietly, without interrupting, without pity, just understanding. She said something I'll never forget. "Hania, silence protects the guilty, not the innocent. You did nothing wrong. Don't carry someone else's shame." Those words broke me and healed me at the same time. After that day, I started writing. Every night, I wrote in a small diary. Everything I had felt, everything I couldn't say out loud. The pain, the fear, the anger, all of it poured onto those pages. Slowly, I began to feel lighter, but my story wasn't over. One afternoon, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was trembling. She said, "Your uncle has been arrested." I froze. My aunt had finally spoken up. After years of silence, she had found the courage to tell the truth, not just about me, but about everything he had done to her and others. I couldn't believe it. The man who once controlled everyone's life was finally behind bars. That night, I cried again, but this time the tears were of relief. Justice, even delayed, had finally arrived. A few weeks later, my mother came to visit me. When she saw me, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm so sorry, my child. I should have seen the signs. I couldn't say anything. I just held her and said, 'It's over, Ami. Let's not live in the past anymore.'" After that, something inside me changed forever. I realized that thousands of girls like me were living in fear, inside homes that looked peaceful from the outside but were full of darkness inside. So I made a decision. At college, I joined a small awareness group for women. We began to visit schools, small towns, and communities to speak about emotional abuse, trust, and self-protection. The first time I spoke publicly, my hands were shaking. My voice cracked as I said, "Sometimes the monster doesn't come from outside. Sometimes it lives inside your own house." The room fell silent. Many women had tears in their eyes. That day, I understood something powerful. When you tell your story, you don't just heal yourself. You help others heal too. Months passed. I graduated with good grades, started working, and began to rebuild my life. The scars were still there, but they no longer controlled me. They became a reminder that I survived. One evening, I was walking near the beach. The sunset painted the sky in orange and pink, and the wind touched my face softly. For the first time in years, I felt peace. I whispered to myself, "Hania, you made it." I looked around, families laughing, children playing, the sound of waves, and I smiled, because despite everything, I still believed in kindness, in faith, and in new beginning. Moral message. There are many girls like Hania, silent, scared, and broken inside homes that look perfect. But silence only helps the guilty. If you're suffering, speak up. Tell someone. It's not your shame. It's their sin. Your voice has power, and sometimes one voice can save another life.